Recording in progress.
Not me. That's the Zoom one. Okay.
Good evening and welcome to the August 2nd, 2021 Shakopee Public Utilities Commission meeting. We are, call the meeting to order. Could you please take the roll, Ms. Nelson?
President Mokel.
Here.
Vice President Fox.
Present.
Commissioner Brennan.
Here.
Commissioner Krieg.
Here.
Commissioner Letourneau is absent, so 4 out of the 5 commissioners are present.
Okay, thank you. And on to number 2, communications. 2A, we have the commission meeting that is canceled for August 16, 2021. And then is there any other communications the commission would like to share? I did want to share one communication I received from the downtown businesses. They were going to try to do something in honor of Miss America was her first name. Yes, so they weren't able to do that because it was technically a chamber event for the Rhythm on the Rails and not a fundraising event. So I would ask the commission's permission to put a link to the press release from SVA, which is our Southern Valley Alliance, which is our domestic violence organization for Scott and Carver County, and then maybe some links on our website. Would everybody be okay with doing that?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you. Our thoughts are with your family. As you all know, we did close the offices that day, which probably was a good idea just for customers coming and going, since they did pick him up at the landing too. So appreciate everybody's cooperation with that. All right, and then with that, I will move on to number 3, which is our consent agenda. And with our consent agenda, 3B is approval of our agenda this evening. And by accident, 7B is actually an electric item. So we can leave it as is, or we can move it to 8B instead of 7B, and it's up to the commission.
7C.
Or 7C, sorry.
C.
Sorry. Would everyone like to change it, or we can leave it remaining? I'll take a motion to approve the agenda as is or with that amendment.
I'll approve it as is, because it's the next page anyway.
That's what we thought. So can I get a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. And on to number 4, which is our liaison report. Commissioner Brennan.
Thank you. The council approved the final plat of Windermere South 5th Edition. This consists of 57 single-plat homes, or single-family homes, excuse me, as well, we approved the final plat of Valley Crest Edition number 1, which is 71 of 175 lots. And you probably are aware of that since we just approved the trunk water charges on both of those. The council, we also approved a professional service agreement with WSB and Associates for the design and construction service for Maris Hanson and 13th Avenue. The council reviewed the initial draft of the 22 capital improvement plan, and we'll be continuing working on the budget until about November. There's been a conversation regarding the SPU policy that requires copper service lines from the curb cut to the home versus allowing for the option of plastic. The concerns include cost of copper compared to plastic, theft of copper, and leaching of copper into the home water supply. The state plumbing code allows for the option to use either plastic or copper. And I would like to have the commission review this policy to determine if plastic is a viable option for our community.
Okay.
So at a future meeting.
Yes. Do we have a consensus to review that?
Yeah, we can put it on next a meeting. I know that was going to be a little lengthy, but we'll definitely put it on the next one. There is not a meeting as indicated at, so it'll be our September 7th meeting.
Perfect.
Okay,
All right, thank
thanks.
you. You bet.
That's all I have, sorry. Thank you for bringing up the Thayer, Mafalda Thayer issue.
Thank you for remembering the name. I forgot to write everything down after I left. All right, are there any questions for Commissioner Brennan? Great, thank you for your report. Next, we're on to number 5, which is our public comment period. The public comment period provides an opportunity for the public to address the commission on items that are not on the agenda. Comments should not exceed 5 minutes. The SPU president may adjust the time limit based upon the number of persons seeking to comment. This comment period may not be used to make personal attacks, to air personality grievances, or political endorsements or campaigns. The public comments are intended for informational purposes only. Commissioners will not enter into a dialogue with commenters, and questions from commissioners will be for clarification only. And seeing none, we will move on to number 6 is general manager report. 6A is Mr. Dren.
Madam President, Commissioners, thank you. I was on vacation for a week, so it's a little bit shorter, but it's still plenty going on. We're set for our pilot meeting that will be held on August 19th is our number 2 meeting for that. I think we had a great first meeting, and we definitely have that one coming up. We've been having some internal meeting on our West Shakopee substation, and we have a little report on that. I did send out a preliminary budget schedule. With that, we will also be working on the employee reviews, so we're going to start that in the coming next couple weeks. Compensation and classification study is ongoing, which will be due at our next meeting. County Road 83, we did have a good meeting. The city helped us out, and we set up a meeting with that, and we were able to come to an agreement that we are going to put some valving in place, and Joe is working on with them on that to make sure that the proper valving is in place. We did get an updated schedule just end of last week, and we are moving forward with leaving the water main in place. We are going to absorb the cost to redo the prints, and then and we did get that estimate this last week as well. And there was just one clarification on bidding. There was some bidding on there, and I'd asked Joe to ask the county on that piece of it. The project needs to be bid whether we were going to change anything or not, so that was put in this estimate as well. So I just asked him for some clarification on that. But other than that, it was a great resolution to this, and I think we're moving forward on that project with limited exposure. Not to say it's eliminated, but with definitely a much reduced cost for that project. I guess, is there any other questions on the County Road 83?
I just have a comment. I had received a comment that the commission did it right. We performed the way that we should have, and we got things done, and it was done in a good way. So I appreciate all the work that everybody's done on that.
Yeah, no, and we appreciate the commissioners getting involved, because we did think that there was some additional exposure that we couldn't control. So thank you for taking the time to send those emails and make those phone calls. So I think it was I guess how it's supposed to happen, so thank you for that. We did have an MMPA meeting this last week. We did have a meeting with Alyssa Fry on updating our handbook. We are going to put a draft together and work with them. So we had a great, Cindy Minke and I met with her for about an hour and a half, just kind of went through what some of the differences are. Should we, lean one way or another? We had lots of questions answered. So now we're going to put some of those changes in there. Talked about some education assistance, updating some of those things, just different things throughout there. That's kind of our last revision, I think, was in 2012. So just kind of wanted to get that thing up to speed. It's going to take a little while, but we'll get there, and we're going to definitely put some timelines on that in the future. But we'll let this process kind of go through, and then hopefully we have a subcommittee or something we can work on that with the commission when we get a little closer. Had meetings with property insurance renewal, so we're on the we did get that updated. Made a couple minor changes, and so we went through that process again. I did meet with our AMI consultants just to kind of give them an update on the billing and where that system is. AEM is working on that, and we have timelines for that. So we'll just continue to work through the timeline on our billing system, and then followed behind that will be an AMI. Had two different meetings on backflow prevention. Lon headed that up. with that, and how the documentation works. We looked at two different companies. One company the fire department uses for sprinklers, and they go online to get their sprinkler systems updated, and there's a fee associated with that. But also we can maybe piggyback on that and also have these backflow preventers on that same platform. So we're working through some of the work on that. We will, coming up, water treatment discussions. We had another meeting on water inspections for the operators. We meet tomorrow on EV chargers. Michael Kursky on Friday had sent out an email to Joe and I on some of those EV chargers. That hasn't been forgotten about, so we just did get an updated proposal from the city on what they're looking at, so we'll continue to work on that. And then we're meeting tomorrow with Anna Hartman at MMPA, and if that all works well, where they can take care of the billing, then we will be able to order them if they can take care of the billing. So we're just gonna double check that. I did send out an email. Brad Carlson, who's on vacation right now, did get promoted to electric superintendent. We had three interviews that we went through. BJ Letourneau is not here. If you want more questions at our next meeting, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them. We just went through, we had three candidates. Really, Brad did stand out as the one that has managed multiple people. The other two had some experience, but not as the in-depth experience managing people. The size, the growth rate that we have here, managing projects. So I was really impressed that he could continue on and help with us and move this organization forward and really be that expert in the electric field. So that was good interviews, and we did make a decision on that. We did send mutual aid to Grand Rapids. I got a call from MMUA, and this is all reimbursable expense. So we did get an email today on that, and I forwarded it off to the finance department on what that looks like for reimbursable expenses. But Grand Rapids had some windstorms go through up there, and they had about 60% of their customers were out of power. They weren't sure on hotel rooms, so the first day they just asked for one crew to go up, so I sent two guys in a bucket truck up there, and they took care of things as they could. They did stop at 8 o'clock at night, so they were from 6 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. The next morning I did get a call from Mike Willits at MMUA, and he requested if we could send a second crew, so we did send a second crew for 2 days, and then they came back on Friday, and things went well. They got pretty much everybody back on. It was a lot of trees down. They have a lot of steel poles in that area, so a lot of the poles weren't snapped off. It was more wires down and just replacing services and doing those type of things. They had some safety things with 2 different voltages that they had to work through, so they thought it was a little slower than it should have been, but it was more of a safety side of things to make sure that everybody was safe. So, but went well. We do this from time to time. MMUA requests some assistance if we have storm-related damage in pretty much anywhere in the state, and once in a while out of state. We've sent a crew to Florida twice, and is there anywhere else? Missouri. I think it was just before I came in Missouri. So yeah, so we, from time to time, through APPA, which we're a member of, but this one was a local MMUA, and if there's a big enough storm in an area, sometimes like some of the hurricanes and different straight line winds, they'll request out-of-state people, but so this one we're able to handle that, and I think there was about 6 or 7 towns that went up to this one and assisted, and everything went well. Next meeting we'll also have project updates. I think it's been a little while since we got on project updates, so we'll work on that to put that on the agenda as well. And then I did have lunch with Steve Lillyhog one day, and we talked about that, and we did talk about the Hanson project and us piggybacking on that as well. So yeah, things are going well. Just busy times, as you can tell by the list, and but things are going really well, and we're just trying to get through. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Dwyer? I did have one. Going back to the handbook and with the employee survey we did way back when, it feels like already. We did a list of like employee wants, and I know one of the things that we talked about was a volunteer policy. Were you guys going to implement some of those things, or?
Yes, we are looking at those
Okay.
things, as well as I know that the city does some like they can also donate some of your sick time to somebody, so we're looking at some of those
Okay.
policy. So we've talked about Toys for Tots, volunteer, maybe even having this a center for that, and some of those things like that. So yes, that will all be part of that, as well as some of the other things that I think that are good. There's a real wellness program that I like. I'm not sure I can get that all done in the first version of this, and still have everything in place. But I know that we talked about the city's wellness program and what they offer for that. We did talk briefly about, is memberships like to the community center, and do we work with the city on something like that? So there's some things like that where we're talking about, and I also have talked to a couple of the departments about getting one person from each department and just kind of sitting and talking through things, what we have, what do you see other places, and just kind of get a little more of an atmosphere, like a little buy-in from everyone. So I'm going to start that. I hope to have that meeting either Thursday or Friday this week, just to get some more ideas on what they see and what would like, and if it's not necessarily dollar figures, but maybe it's something that we can offer them. I think that that's important as well.
Absolutely, I think those are the most important things.
Greg, do you want to let the commissioners know that we now have an employee suggestion box too?
Sure. So we did open up a suggestion box for people that have different things, but I think with the open communication, I don't know if we'll get tons of them in there, but we haven't had that in the past, and it's just a kind of a nice way for the employees to, if they don't want to bring it to management or something, they can throw some in the box that we're going to check once a week. So we'll see if we get anything in there. We haven't had anything substantial yet, but we'll see how that goes. So.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to number 7, which is our water items, and 7A is our water systems operation report. Mr. Schemmel.
Thank you very much, and good evening. Weather continues to be in the forefront for water production. If you remember, last several months I've said that 10 million gallons a day is just a good day. Well, we've had many good days this year. Our July average has been 10.7 million. Our last week of July was 10.9 million. Our max day was July 4th at 12.8. So far, there's been no problems, no equipment failures. Water levels are maintaining. The one thing we do watch is things don't happen quickly underground. So we'll probably see water levels decline would be towards the fall or even early winter is when we would see those levels go down. So we're going to watch that and see what may need to be done either yet this fall or possibly going into next spring. So we'll have to see how much snow we get for recharge. On July 29th, the state went to, where northern Scott County went to severe drought condition. Now this is a broad scale condition, and local conditions vary. Some cities in the southwest metro have gotten some heavy rains, a couple of times where we didn't get much of anything. So our conservation plan is in effect all summer. A lot of towns you're hearing are just now going to conservation plans. Well, we do that from day one, we think that helps quite a bit. People are really listening to us as we are continuing to drop off cards and stuff when we see them sprinkling on the wrong days. And I think that's why we've kind of settled out at 10 million a day. Because, we were having 12 and 14 million gallon days, right at the beginning of the heat spell. So I think we've calmed that down a bit. We did flush for one more week and then we stopped. So just because of weather conditions, we wanted to get a little bit more done, but we didn't want to contribute, to the pumpage numbers. That's really what I have for a report this evening, if there are any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Schemmel? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we'll move on to 7B, which is our well number 23 design report with a presentation. Mr. Schemmel.
Thank you again. This evening, we have Paul Harubin with us from Sambatech, Inc. Paul has nearly 30 years of experience with municipal water and wastewater conveyance projects throughout the upper Midwest. Paul and his wife Patty live in Roseville, have 2 lab retrievers to help him keep him busy. Paul enjoys spending time with his family as well as hiking, biking, playing trumpet for the Roseville Community Band. Paul is honored for the opportunity to provide a brief synopsis on the Well 23 design. Paul, welcome, and if you haven't, could you sign in, please?
I have.
All right.
Thanks. Can you hear me?
Yes,
All right.
good evening.
Thanks. Well, once again, my name is Paul Harubin with Sambatech. I'm the project manager for the Well 23 project, and we recently submitted the Well 23 design report. So basically, the purpose of the design report is to kind of lay out the parameters and the criteria, is make sure you're choosing a location that's optimal, make sure you're in a location of the Jordan Aquifer where you're going to be able to get adequate supply out of there. So as far as the Well 23 is a vital piece of infrastructure for your system, given the anticipated development that's going to happen in the southwest area down there. This is a vital piece of infrastructure that will feed the high pressure zone. We expect it to deliver about 800 gallons a minute, if not a little bit more, but we want to be a little conservative on the design. We want to have it to be about 800 gallons a minute. It will be in the Jordan Aquifer. And it's, the Jordan Aquifer is thinning in this location, so this well will probably be about the furthest west that you can go. And this is one of, there's potential to have a few additional wells in this area, then have all the wells feed into a common pumping station. So you can feed I'm sure if you drive out there, you see the well number, or a tank number 8 that's currently being constructed, should be operational in about 3-4 months. So it'll basically feed that. It'll feed all the upcoming development in the southwest area, and a lot of development is anticipated to occur by 2024. So well 23 will be about 410, 415 feet deep. We anticipate it'll be a 24-inch by 18-inch well, which means 24-inch casing will extend through the overburden, which is your sand and gravel, and then the 18-inch will extend through the Prairie du Chien into the Jordan sandstone, and then you'll have an open well into your Jordan sandstone. So, and then the timeline of this, we anticipate to have the design completed probably early to mid-September, get it into MDH for permitting review, and we have been in contact with MDH, so they do know this is coming. So we would like to have this constructed starting in November and have it completed sometime in February. And we have looked at different potential methods for doing this well. We have talked to the Midwest Geologic on this, so we're going to leave it open to do either cable tool, mud rotary, or dual rotary. Different methods. So that way you'll have kind of different bids to go against. Kind of let the contractors decide which way they want to go, as long as they can meet our time frame. We did choose a location that's in a very low vulnerability area, according to the wellhead protection plan for Shakopee. And that's basically what we want to do. It's a very important piece of infrastructure. Obviously, it's a first step, get this well done. And then after that, then there'll be a wellhead study that'll happen after February. We'll do more testing on it and just see how far we can develop this well field. So I'll now open up things for questions.
All right. Are there any questions?
Paul, if we wanted to go farther west, how would we know if we could or not? I mean, would we try to do a test well? Do you do just residential wells? Do you see how they're constructed or what they produce? I mean, if we saw the need in 5 to 10 years, could we,
Well, the aquifer is thinning as you move west, so I mean, you would get, your rate of return would be a lot less if you were to move west. I mean, maybe you can move, 500 feet west, but obviously you have to do test wells to see what you really be able to get, or if there's, if the aquifer somehow improves in 5 years, which, is highly unlikely.
right?
So, I mean, I think this is probably about your westernmost point in the Jordan well, or in the Jordan aquifer. At least that's what the preliminary test wells suggest.
Okay, not that the DNR would allow it at this point, but are there other aquifers west that could be used? I mean, could you go deeper if you needed to?
And go like into let's be past the Prairie du Chien. We'd have to look into that. I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's.
Well, I'm just, for planning for the future. I mean, right now, we don't foresee that, but,
Right. That could be a potential. I'm not sure what the other aquifers are as you go to the west there, and how deep you'd have to go.
Okay,
I could certainly look into that.
all right.
Joe?
Paul, does the thinning of the aquifer also go south from this location, or is it believed to be similar to the south, but not west?
It moves, I mean, it's mostly predominant to the west, but it does thin a little bit as you go to the south. I'm not, I haven't seen enough test wells to know to what degree.
Okay.
All right, are there any more questions for Paul?
One other comment. Yeah, and I think Paul mentioned it a little bit. So part of this design, we have 3 wells in this area, potentially a 4th if we acquire some more land. We thought it was prudent and responsible as we talk about treatment, that we are going to have all of these go into one manifold. So if we do need to do treatment in this area, all these wells will be into one manifold. So we plan on putting that manifold in place. So if and when we drill future wells, we will be able to go into that manifold, and if there is treatment needed, we will be able to tap off of that and then treat it before it goes into the water tower. So that's part of the manifold process. So we are putting that as part of this project to make sure we do this. And as part of our planning and as we get into the CIP, we'll see some dollars associated with that on what treatment would look like. So that is all going to be part of this, as well as Paul was saying that, as development happens in that area, we do have a booster station right now that we are going to fill the water tower with, and we'll have plenty of capacity for all the development that happens currently in there. But this will be the first piece to run that, and then the booster station will just be a backup then. So if we do need to take well 23 down for any service, we still could pressurize that with the booster station. So the booster station will still be a part of our portfolio, and we want to make sure that we can use that when we need to. But this really is the next phase, and I think it's a great addition, and we'll be able to get data once we drill this well. So the couple different options that he had talked about for the style of drilling the casing in, there's just several different ways, and different well drillers do it differently. As long as they meet our specs and the straightness of it and what we do, we're not concerned that the different styles are all very well vetted out, and they do a great job of that. So they're just different styles, but we think it's also prudent for our ratepayers and the commissioners here to make a good decision on having a couple different options and what we're looking at. That's why the different options are out there. So
All right,
I think that's it.
Commissioner
Thank
Brennan?
you. Oh,
Oh,
pardon.
sorry.
I have a couple questions. On Appendix A and Appendix B, it doesn't show the stormwater pond that's being placed on that property. Is that any concern to have the well in the stormwater pond?
Well, that's kind of up to the contractor. Obviously, when it comes time for them to do the test well, then they have to construct their own basin to do the test well. So that's something that the contractor submits, and then the engineer would review and approve it, because the contractor may have different locations where they want to put it.
Okay,
So that pond would be a function of the testing, because obviously they do a 24-hour test on that, and it's going to generate a lot of water. So you want to have a pond that where, trickle down in there and catch any extra sand that gets caught up during the test. As far as a stormwater pond, you mean for drainage of the site? Well, that would come in with later, obviously if a treatment plant was built, then you'd have to put in some type of storage or some type of stormwater attenuation. But all we're putting in is a well. It's very small, so we're not adding any real impervious surface.
I think-
Okay.
Can I comment on that a
sure.
little bit? Yeah, so we have had meetings with the city and part of the wellhead protection plan on how far this wells are away from the ponding areas in there. We do, and Joe probably can talk even more educated than I can, but we did have a meeting with the city on this. And we are, the low part of the pond is a lined part of the pond where the infiltration of the ponding for the site and for DR Horton development, the ponding is part of that. And we talked about that land swap to get a driveway in there. We're not worried because the distances from the wells, all 3 wells, is going to be great enough that it's not an impact to the wellhead protection plan. So, Joe, can you comment on that just a little bit?
Yeah, as Lon noted, and Paul noted, this is in a low vulnerability area to begin with. So the rules for low vulnerability area are one thing, and a high vulnerability area, they would be another. We feel, based on our discussions with our consultant for the wellhead protection, which is, what's, Mark Janovic with Stantec, that we would meet the guidelines for an infiltration pond, which is what is being designed for the stormwater management in the subdivision adjacent to our site. And the wellheads would be set back from the infiltration areas of that pond adequately to meet the guidelines of the Department of Health and the Department of Natural Resources.
Did you have another question, Commissioner Brennan?
I do,
Okay.
but we'll
Did you have something to add, Lon, before we get started? Okay,
It
go
might
ahead.
help.
Oh, okay,
Commissioner Brennan.
perfect.
You know, in a lined pond with low vulnerability, you could be 50 feet away. We're about 1,000 feet away with well 23, so.
But we
The
are
first
within-
well is much
We are
further.
within 200 feet of the future well. Could be,
Right.
but not 50. It would be about 200, so.
Okay.
23 is 200?
No.
No.
The
If
first
pe-
well, well
Oh, okay,
23,
okay.
is that 1,000 feet away. The future wells, in the layout of two other future wells, they each would be 200 feet or more away from the infiltration, which is the guideline when it's more of a vulnerability than it is. So I think we're confident that we'll be able to get the 3 wells that we hope to get and have the adequate supply planned for the growth of the city in this area.
Okay. I do have one more question. I know that this is former farmland that has been possibly had fertilizer on it. Do we have anything in place for using nitrogen-free fertilizer or removing any issues with the waste that might be on that property?
What was the nitrate level in the test well, Lon?
Very low. It was like 1 in the test well right there. And there was, I think there was like 1 part per million also at the farm with cows right there at the back door of the farmhouse. So we didn't see a nitrate issue there.
Okay.
That's the benefit of being having so much overburden is the terminology for the soils and the sand and the gravel that's above the aquifer. By having it in this location, there'll be plenty of natural ground filtration occurring from the rainwater that hits the ground and goes and infiltrates into the aquifer.
Right, and there's actually a third test well, or a third residential well that was farther west, and we didn't see anything in that either. So, very low.
I will comment that this will be an ongoing monitoring. So if we do run across something, we would definitely come back to the commission and to the city with some of those recommendations if it becomes a problem at all. So during our test well, we don't see it to be a problem. We are over 400 feet deep on this one, which, like Joe was saying, I think that natural filtration takes care of most of that. But definitely, if the number at all creeps up, we will be coming back to the commission with some guidance and in your approval to talk to the city about that. But as of right now, with our test well, we don't think it's going to be a problem.
Mr. Adams?
And then finally, the point of the site is that it's large enough. Initially, we just plan a standard traditional pump house with fluoride and chlorine, but it's large enough that we can expand on the same site a treatment plant that would deal with any such issue, either nitrate or iron or manganese or any unknown substance or element. So that's the flexibility of this site.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to go over it yet, but it touches on Appendix D. It talks about a number of chemicals that are higher than they should be or is recommended, it looks like. But I can barely pronounce most of them, much less know if they're dangerous. But I did see chloroform was higher, and there's some other things in here that are higher than the number next to it for a baseline. So are those things we need to treat beforehand, or are those things of concern?
I don't think I think that's, that test data came back the water's pretty clean from what I read. I know there's about 400 different items that were tested in the appendix, but I thought the water quality was quite high. I mean, as far as the chloroform, I don't know if we're that concerned with it.
Well, there's 5 right here on this page that it says there's an accepted, now you got me doing it. There's an acceptance limit of 60 to 140%, and chlordane was at 259. This is Appendix D,
And then it's
3 of 12. Yeah, reading it again, it looks like of these 5 items, 3 are saying that the limit was exceeded, and then it looks like the others are saying there's issues with the tests, where there wasn't either enough sample volume or due to decay limit, it couldn't be retested.
Right.
I'd have to contact the lab to see what they meant by the narrative page on this.
I'm not sure this was a report on the water quality sample from the test well.
Well,
or
this
if it
was
was a
before it, so
report-
water quality analysis for tank 8.
Right, this singular page may be a report on the quality of the testing at
Yeah,
the lab.
It's got more to do with the lab, the lab.
Oh,
I don't think it's a report on the water sampled from our test well. I think it's a report, judgment of the accuracy of
It's
tests
report of the
from
report.
this lab.
okay.
I believe so in reading it myself.
Because labs get evaluated too on yeah, that's what that would
Okay.
indicate.
Well, then, the only thing I really saw that was higher than the MRL was chlorine, but it was 0.7 versus 0.5, which I don't know if that's a huge difference. Did I say chlorine? I meant chloroform. Yeah, that's on page 6.
Oh, I see that. Yep.
Yeah.
0.7.
Looking at that point 7.
Yeah, yeah. That was the only one that, well, there was some with the radionuclides, but those were all lowish too.
Yeah, I can look into this chloroform and get back to you on what that indicates, because the other thing that, that I've seen over the years is on a very new well, things show up before you actually pump them off for a
Flush it
while and
out.
use them, like, because all of the well drillers' tools, there's grease on them, they use lubricants, so you'll see volatile organics and things like that, and then, like the test well at Windermere, once we started using it for irrigation, it cleaned right up. I mean, the results were all great within normal, limits and whatnot. And this might be a similar type thing. We usually will do a complete like this after a well's been in service for a month or so, just to check on them.
Okay.
But let me look into the chloroform number for you.
Sounds good, thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff or Paul?
I just have one. There's 2 wells that are listed in the well inventory. They don't look like they're that close. I was just wondering what we kind of do to make sure that the well isn't interfering with their operation? Is it just they notice that they're not getting water out of their well, or do we do anything to kind of monitor that we're not impacting them?
Well, during the well test, we'll have a level sensor inside of that test well. So we'll know exactly what's going on right there. And that'll give us an indication of what could be going on.
And you're
Tell us-
referring to the private wells?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't know that they're going to maintain that farm once it's sold
Okay.
with part of the development, so the well will probably be sealed.
Okay.
But in a situation where we go into a residential neighborhood, if we would, that had some private wells, if we negatively impacted them and made their well useless, we would pay to put them on city supply.
Yeah, I was just
So,
wondering, like, how we basically figure out that we're interfering with that well.
yeah.
Is it just that one day they turn on their shower and they don't have water, or is it?
Kind of the way it works, yeah. Yeah, they wouldn't have water on certain days. It happened once, but I don't remember the results up at 12. I
Did
don't,
we affect a private well
I
there?
think we did. I think we deepened their pump setting for them. You know, so we call a well contractor and have it looked at. And it was able to be resolved, but,
The closest wells, I believe, are the church, two churches, that are located to the east, and they're both going onto the city water system. The one in the corner, the larger church, I think is already on the city water system, and Mount Olive, I think, is waiting the 3-year waiting period. Then the house located to the southwest is going to be coming on to the system when development surrounds it. But that one, I think, is the one to be the one to worry about if there is such a term. But it's so far away, I don't think we're gonna affect it. If we do, we'll do what Lon said and rectify the situation.
most of our well sites are well fields. There could be 2 to 3 wells per site, like we have 6, 7, and 10 at one, and 12, 13, and 14 at another one. And they're within 300 to 400 feet of each other, and they don't interfere. So we can kind of judge by our own experience on our various sites that, now they're in different aquifers, some of them, you know, we can try to keep them as far apart as possible, but we do pretty well that way, so.
Okay, are there any other questions for staff? Seeing none, thank you, Paul, for your presentation.
Yep, thank you,
Well,
sir.
thank you for having me.
Yes. All right. Moving on, we'll move on to 7C, which is an electric item, the West Shakopee Substation. Mr. Adams.
Thank you. Thank you. I see I left out a couple words there. The project design for the West Shakopee substation is nearing completion. It's being designed by Kevin Faber of Lados Incorporated. I've left out the name of his firm there in the first sentence. I gave you a background of the major milestones that have been accomplished to date. At this point, I asked Kevin for a schedule. We've been nearing completion of a matrix of responsibilities with Xcel Energy for who's responsible for design and construction and operations of the various components within a substation. As the transmission provider, Xcel Energy will have a presence in the substation on the 115 kV side of it. And as you can see in the schedule that was attached to the memo, we are looking at an in-service date of November of next year. That will be in like a half a year ahead of when we believe we need the sub for the growth that's occurring out there. In terms of its impact, will be the highest demand occurs during the summer. We believe we have facilities in place with our existing substations and feeder circuits to handle all the growth that'll occur between now and then the substation will be online next fall. So I'll take any questions about the process. The major milestones are listed with their dates. We don't anticipate any problems in the, at this point with those dates. Kevin has taken into account the current economy situation with raw materials and with slots for building these large elements, the transformer and switchgear building at the various manufacturers.
All right. Any questions on the substation update for Mr. Adams? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Adams.
You're welcome.
We will move on to electric items, 8A, which is our verbal operations report. Mr. Durant.
All right, Madam President, Commissioners, thank you. Just a little update on, we had 2 outages since our last commission meeting. 4th Avenue West, 9 customers, we had a transformer failure. I think, obviously with as much heat as we've had, I'm sure some of these are, if they are at the limits, once in a while we get that. And then on 7/27, we did have a fair amount of customers that were out of power on Pheasant Run, Pondsway, Chester. We had a bad transformer. Once in a while, not too often, but it does happen from time to time. We had a transformer that did have a primary fault inside the transformer, which then opens a cutout or a protective device back on our system. So we had 150, just about 200 customers out. We were able to restore 152 customers in 64 minutes. And then we had 42 customers that were, as we got closer to the fault and found the transformer, we had another 42 customers that were out for 124 minutes. And then the last 8 customers, we had to change out that transformer, a little over 200 minutes. So it was kind of more of a phased one. It was one big outage. We were able to get some people on, and as you remember, it was during the hot time. We did post it on social media and let people know. I think that's a good avenue, and I was looking at Concerned Citizens and some of the other websites, and there was links put to our website, so that is good, that people understand we are on top of it and we're working on it. I did get a thank you from one of our customers. It just says, I want to thank everyone involved in restoring the power today. I really appreciate those who are out during the heat to resolve the issue. So that's good when you hear that. Well, it was a Wes Kilker who sent that email to our customer service. So that is a appreciative customer of that. But yeah, so that was kind of a little bit of a tough one because it was on towards the end of our line, which did affect that. We do have fault indicators throughout our system, so that does help eliminate some of these. We're able to go partway through the system, see that this device either can see it or not see the fault, which then able to restore half the customers, basically, or over half the customer in that 64 minutes. So that was a good thing. We did, I forgot to mention this during the general manager report, but I did put on everyone, we had 25 years of MMPA. So this is their annual document that they put. It just gives you a little history of MMPA, when it was formed, when Shakopee came online. So, you know, it's just a good document. All of our financial statements are in there and some of those things. So, you know, if you have any questions, don't feel free to ask it. You know, we'll probably give some. And Jody, if you want to take a couple extra for the city, or we can send them over there as well. So the city has them as well. We'll leave a couple copies, but this came across this last week. So they do an annual booklet on that. So that's what that is. Projects that the line crew is working on. They're working on the Levy Drive Duck Bank. Joe was out there today working on some more stuff with that, on some design stuff, getting some cables started to pull in there. We do have some additional digging to go there as well. Stagecoach, we had Eagle Creek, we had some tree removal stuff we had to do there. We're definitely doing underground inspections, and you know, even though we try to do these from time to time, we have found some extra time this year in between projects, and we have actually found several transformers that needed to be repaired or replaced. So this is, you know, this is preventing them from having those outages later. So we also heat detect connections in our transformers when we do those inspections. So that is good, and we've caught some problems that don't become outages. We've had solar installations that have been going crazy right now, just this time of year. We've had, I think I've signed over 72 interconnections for solar. Don't know exactly how many are actually on our system right now. I can get that number at a later meeting, but definitely a fair amount of solar customers, and that's part of our rate analysis that we're looking at this year as well. And they did do a data request on us just on this last week, Friday, so we'll start getting some data on that so we can look at that rate design. The old Kmart warehouse facility is adding a secondary service transformer, and Greystone got another tenant in their new facility and wanted a second transformer, so we're going to start installing that as well. So definitely projects, and things have been going well, and we had the 2 outages. So with that, I will stand for any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Durant? Seeing
thank you.
none, thank you, and please thank staff for all that work during the outage.
I will do, thank you.
All right, moving on, 9 is the human resources, which we have none, so we'll move on to number 10, which is our general. 10A is our marketing customer service report. Ms. Walsh.
Thank you. Rhythm on the rails. Every week just gets hotter and hotter, but it also gets more successful. We started with the water survey, and I think we had like 80 people stop by. Last week, I was up to 250 that I was able to interact with. So either the crowds are picking up, or more people are realizing we're there, or the combination of both. But this week, we are going to have the booth staffed by 3 individuals from the electric department and possibly someone from engineering. And the theme is to talk about being a local electric supplier, the benefits of being here, what our system looks like, the reliability, all of those things that make having a municipal utility in this community a good thing. At this time, too, I would like to just say our last event that's coming up next Wednesday, if any one of the commissioners would like to attend the booth and just be there to have a presence, just go ahead and email me and we'll get you scheduled. But next week, I think we just want to be available to talk about what's new, what's coming. EV charging seems to be a hot topic when people do stop by and talk to us. Maybe the new substation, future growth, all of that. So a more high-level approach next week. The new logo. So trying to be fiscally responsible when we rolled out the new logo. We had a lot of inventory with envelopes and mailing statement paper. We've kind of used that up, so we're at a good point where we can start cutting over on our billing statement. So if you've wondered why we haven't, it was for that reason. But I just ordered new envelopes, so as of August, you'll see the new envelopes come out to our customers. And hopefully, I'll also have the new statement updated, so it'll be a combo of both things happening at once. Let's see, what else on the logo? One other thing, again, we're kind of looking at how much inventory and paper supplies we're really ordering and doing. So one thing that we'll probably also order would be a new invoice that comes out of our finance department with a perforated edge. But what I wanted to say about that is we've also added a new PO box for these types of communications, or maybe engineering has any sort of documents that they want coming in. Everything used to come into PO Box 470, which came in with 18,000 paper billing statements. So we're separating that, so hopefully, when I create this, there'll be the opportunity to put that new PO box up. Flipping over to the customer service billing side, just a quick update on the deposit. I had indicated last meeting that we were really still working on that. Just high-level information, I can tell you we have 1,449 accounts that have had a deposit with us for greater than 5 years. We went through each and every one of these to look at their either late payments or disconnects over the last 5 years, and 726 of the 1,449 have been late more than 3 times. So under the scenario that we said, almost 50% would not actually qualify then to get their deposit refunded. The other 723 have had great payment history. Only 3 accounts have been disconnected. So as we move forward with that and we start talking about getting the process into refund deposits, ballpark number $767,000 of the $1.26 million we have would be able to be refunded. So that's exciting. Disconnects, we did not do our major disconnects in July and or the specials just due to the heat. So tomorrow, with it only being 83, we will do those special disconnects, which would be those individuals who have set up a payment plan but have not fulfilled that or kept to their commitment. We have approximately 97 customers that affects. We'll do those disconnects over 2 days just due to the volume. We also met with O-Power. O-Power is part of our conservation. They're a behavioral science. They're the smiley face letters that we get. We had our annual meeting with them, and we're kind of excited about what they can do, and I have been using them as a way to reach out to our customers in addition to our Facebook and website and billing statements. They've got a new look coming for their, they're called HERS, but they're their home energy reports. And we're excited about the new look, but also just me having another avenue to touch our customers.
Hey, Sharon, can you also talk about the savings that we get to account for that on SIP?
Absolutely. So this is a nationwide combination of data and algorithms, but the state of Minnesota accepts these algorithms as reduction in kilowatt hour usage by the people. So what they're saying is if you open this up, whether you have a smiley face because you're better, or you have a sad face because you don't perform or use energy at the same level as similar homes, just seeing that creates a behavior change within the person, either to irritate them, make them happy. I mean, it goes both ways when people get this. But just being aware of seeing how they compare to others creates an awareness, which ultimately creates a change in behavior. So what Greg was talking about is each year I'm able to claim about 3.5 million kilowatt hours savings, which is fabulous in terms of meeting our overall mandate of achieving 1.5% in savings of our total kilowatt hour sales. And it's also an extremely cost-effective way to do it. For what this, I believe we pay about $135,000 a year to achieve 3.5 million. Without it, it would be probably a stretch to achieve the goal. But it's also a good thing, and like I said, with the marketing piece as well, I think we're really just trying to figure out how to use it to our benefit and make it be a very positive thing in addition to the cost-effective savings. Does that make sense, or any questions? Okay, medical customers. So as I continue to work through our collection process, we have what we call medical customers who have a medical reason for why they need to have their power on, and they are protected under state statute. Much like cold weather rule, the customers are required to keep a valid medical form on file with us, which is, it lasts for 6 months from the time they submit it to us. It has to be approved by a medical professional. And secondly, the customer needs to keep their account current and/or enter into a payment plan with us. So I think prior, that was maybe a little bit loose, and/or we really weren't enforcing the fact that you as a customer need to keep it valid and you need to set up a payment plan. But we have 29 of those customers that I have reached out to. These 29 customers represent $36,000 in outstanding balances. But I sent them a letter just indicating that this is the process, this is what we need you to do. And we are working with each and every one of those to try and get their accounts current, either through payment plans, but also to make sure they have protection by having a valid form on file with us. Any questions on that? That is it for my verbal update.
All right. Are there any questions for Ms. Walsh? I appreciate the detail. It was a lot of information that we haven't had before, so much
Good.
appreciated.
If it's too much, just let me know.
All right, we will. All right, seeing that, let's move on to 10B, which is our late payment penalties. Ms. Walsh.
All right, when we met in July, we just had a brief discussion about returning to penalties and/or credit card fees. And at that time, I didn't really bring anything forward. So tonight, I am providing enough data for you that hopefully in seeing this, we can make a determination on whether we reinstate some of these charges, fees, and/or both of them. So penalties, again, just for everyone's benefit, prior to COVID, we would assess a 5% penalty onto a customer's current billing amount. It would not go on to any past due, so it's only the current billing, it would be 5%. We ceased doing that with COVID in an effort to make it easier for customers to stay current. We went back, and this data I provided, we went back to 2017, just so you could all see what kind of a standard or normal picture looked like, and then through 2021. So 17, 18, and 19, you can see we were upwards of $300,000 on average that would have been assessed to the customers. In 2020, we stopped doing that after March, so 64,000 in penalties were assessed, which is ultimately revenue for us. The balance of the year, then we waived over $318,000 worth of penalties. And this year through July, we are at $271,000 that have been waived. If we were to continue at this pace by year end, we'd be looking at nearly $465,000 in lost revenue as a result of not assessing any penalties. The credit card fees were not revenue generators ever. This was always a pass-through. It was a fee that was assessed to us by Paymentus. But again, in an effort to make it easier for customers to pay and to recognize that some people were affected by COVID, we decided that we would absorb that fee. It did not go away. It became a line item expense for us. So 2017 through 19, our customers were paying roughly $112,000 on average. In 2020, we absorbed that. It did go up, which would make sense because we did promote people paying online. There are benefits for us as well when people do pay online. But in 2020, we had an expense of just under $137,000. And through July of 2021, we're just under $130,000 7 months into the year. So I, at this point, am looking for any input and direction from the commission as to whether we should begin to assess late penalties again and/or what we want to do with the $3.95 credit card fee. My personal opinion is that if we do return to assessing the penalty, I think it would behoove us to just have a small grace period. In the past, if the 15th was the date the bills were due, which is 99% of the time it's the 15th, we would immediately assess a penalty on the 16th. So anything that was a day late in the mail or paid online after the cutoff for assessing the penalty, these people were assessed that charge. And then the online credit card convenience fee, I realize it is an expense to us, and I don't want to step on the toes of finance, so I know this is a two-way discussion, but just we have seen fabulous positive response from our customers by not having to pay that. And by having more and more payments come via credit card, it just streamlines our processing so much, and we don't have to increase staff as our number of customers increase. So those 2 points would be my position on what I wanted to share, but am open to whatever the commission would direct.
Great. Did you, I know we maybe didn't talk about this, but did you maybe have numbers on like return check fees on people who might write checks? Because that would probably play into the $395 conversation is what I was thinking, but.
I did see some of those, but I took the total of what we were assessed when I just downloaded the files. But we did see a bit of an uptick in it, but still, it is a very, very tiny percent, either mailed in, or if someone is using e-checking, the same thing can happen, right? At the time you go online and pay, you get an affirmed or a positive confirmation. It's not until you get to the regional bank that it will kick back to us. Whereas credit and debit card are both immediate. It's either going to go through or it's not, and the customer will know at that time.
And then the other question that I have is, we are looking at the P card piece of this to earn maybe some rewards that way. I don't know how much that will offset since we really haven't used that yet. But is that something we're looking at when we go to that process?
Well, we've been looking at, whether it's, credit cards or P cards, something to put a Band-Aid on the situation. I mean, if you want to do it right, definitely go with P cards. We just have to make certain that there's enough staff capacity to take on all the projects, to move everything forward. But you won't actually know on the P cards until after you've been using it for one full year.
Right.
And it all depends on volume, for what is being used there. I mean, and a rebate could be anywhere from, $5,000 to $50,000, just depending upon what the usage is.
Okay.
So, and with the credit card fees, what I have been seeing is anymore, it's just a cost of doing business. And we're hoping that as we move forward with the new software system, and the volume increases, that there'll be volume discounts to reduce those amount of charges as well.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
Where does the late charge go? What fund does it go into? Does it just go into general operation fund, or?
It either goes, it essentially would be split between, water and electric, whether, because you've got, if they're late, they're late. And they may only pay a portion of it, and then, of course, there's the sequence in which the dollars are applied to the bill. So, you could have a division between where that late fee goes.
Okay.
Corporate take a penny, leave a penny.
But it would be in the AR, right? The account.
Yep.
Customer account, AR, GL.
Sharon, what would the benefit be to have the delay of 3 to 5 days? What would that?
I think, like I had implied, I think sometimes people are just, with mail, if they are still mailing checks, which we still get, I would say close to 10,000 checks a month yet. And I'm doing the numbers in my head based on, I know ACH and then credit cards, 9 to 10,000. So if someone puts it in the mail and there's a delay in the postal, I feel like there was good effort in paying us, and so there's that. And I think because I am customer service, I think anything that I could do, again, to just reinforce the positive branding of SPU, and that we want to work with our customers, and sometimes life gets busy and we're just one piece of their life. But beyond that, I do not have any objective data that would say why we should do this.
I agree. I mean, it's, if we want to be good stewards and, belong to the community and all that, accidents happen, and a certain degree of kindness and forgiveness is always cool. But like you said, we have a number of customers that have been disconnected repeatedly. So there's always a time when that kindness is abused. So I think we have to find that sweet spot of, okay, what is not going to make people in a bad financial spot worse off versus what's actually incentive to people pay the bills they have to. I don't like late fees and penalties, but I understand how they're kind of required. Definitely see credit card fees as a cost of doing business at this point. I think trying to nickel and dime customers for that delegitimizes us a bit, makes us look, we got enough money in the bank to not worry about these little charges there. But if just, so 5% is gonna be 1/20th, so if that's gonna be $400,000, we're looking at about $8 million in missing, that, so that's a big number, and if that number's that big, it doesn't look like adding more money on top of that's really incentivizing people to pay off. But if we can work with like getting them on the schedule payment where, okay, we'll waive whatever the extra fees you have. Maybe we assess them, but we have two numbers, the number with the late fee and the number without. And it's like, you're at this number right now with your late fees. If you get on board with our payment program and you don't mess around, you'll be saving this amount right here. And if we can show them what they save by automatically signing up for these programs and get them on it and they stay on it, then we're covered and we can feel good about waiving that because they're actually paying their, the other 95%. But with just adding a bigger number on it doesn't help unless it goes to collections at some point and we actually recoup that for more than pennies on the dollar anyway. So what happens when they don't actually pay and we do disconnect them?
Under normal circumstances, truly, we've never really treated the late fees or penalties as anything different. It's account balance. And because it's only applied to your current billing, if you're 1-2 months behind, that's really kind of, it's almost lost to me. It becomes a prior balance, and it's only applied to the current bill. So I think it would be, I don't want to say nightmare, but it would be administratively difficult to try and manage and track late fees and treat them differently. I think as a company, we need to say, we've already provided you a service, you're billed in arrears, we give you time to pay us. I mean, I think as much as I was saying, the grace period is nice, I still think in general, we do a lot for our customers in terms of we provide a service and we expect to be paid for it. I mean, it's that simple. The 5% going on only the current bill and not your total outstanding balance, I think is also very nice, right? If your bill is $100 this month, you're paying $5 for a late fee. But if you owe us $800, you know what I mean? We don't keep compounding it. So I don't feel like we're mistreating or abusing and making it difficult for the person who's behind. I think these late fees tend to be more, somebody just forgot to get it to us by the 15th. And that's why, I don't know, it would probably just be more goodwill to give them a day or two. But that's not a good business plan, I know, or a rational thing, other than it's just, if we do it later, I don't know. To me, the objective is to be paid. Let me just say that. I think at the end of the day, that's really our goal. We just want to be paid for the service provided, and I don't think we're looking to generate revenue by late fees. But there has to be some incentive to get people to pay for the service we've already provided, if that makes sense.
I just had a quick question. On the bottom in here, it says, the expected total penalties for this year is like 464. There's a pretty good jump over the number from 2020. Do we have any kind of feeling for what's kind of driving it? Are people just not paying on time, like 1 month, or is it something where people are just kind of accumulating?
I think without any disconnects leading up to this data, I think people were, and again, right, I don't have any hard concrete when I say these things, but it's some people who are just like, oh, I forgot to pay. Oh, look, no penalty, like there wasn't any ramification to them. Then there's some people who I truly believe said, oh, if I can pay my mortgage and my car payment that does have a penalty, I'm going to do that, and I'll pay my utility bill a little bit later. So that's kind of the shift that I saw when we started all of this more flexible payment to us. People just adjusted.
That's what I was wondering, is without the penalty, right, we're seeing the number of stuff that is coming in late grow, right? I think that's what I got from looking at the numbers.
I would agree.
Is there kind of any plan to communicate with people in that 3 to 5 day window, saying, hey, if you don't pay us in 3 to 5 days, whatever the time is, you'll be assessed the fee? Also, maybe sign up for a reoccurring payment so you pay on time. Like, use it as an opportunity to kind of drive people towards, setting up automatic payments. I know that, when I first moved out of my house, I had a huge problem, like, writing checks on time, and I never got good at it. But then, you could just sign up for recurring payments, and now I pay everything on time. But if I had to write checks, there's no way.
Right.
I wouldn't.
I think that goes hand in hand with why I am a fan of no fees for the online payment. So when new people, or new customers sign up, that's all part of our conversation with them to say, oh, if you go to eBill, you can use your credit card. If you have one that, you have your miles or your cash back, whatever you want, you can set up auto pay that way. If you don't want to do that, we can even set you up on direct pay where each month, we do the ACH. So we try and educate them at the time they're signing up, but again, right, as we move more toward people don't have to come in to sign up, we lose that opportunity to have that conversation. So, there's always pros and cons, but to answer your question, we have not called those people. And what I can share from past experience when I first came here, people would set up payment plans. We'd set up the dates that they wanted them. And then we asked the question, do you want us to provide you with a courtesy call? Some said yes, others said no. It felt a little bit like harassment. I can make my own payments. But what we found is that as soon as we said we would call them, if we didn't or they didn't get our message, they would say, well, you didn't call. So all of a sudden, what we try to do as a courtesy becomes an entitlement or an expectation on the part of the customer. So I am somewhat hesitant to,
I was thinking something simple like an email instead of calling them, or I don't know if we're set up for it, but just a text message saying, hey, we missed your bill.
I would believe with a new billing system, that would be a fabulous idea.
That's where I was gonna go in.
Yes.
That's
And
something
I
we
know
should
that's
deploy.
my answer
Put that in the
every time, but
specifications for
it's
the
so
new
true.
system. It's-
I'll be in here myself sending the text messages.
There you go.
Right. Yes, no, those are all things I think as we plan going forward that we want the system to be able to do.
And I think, the 3 to 5 days, and if we would try to send a letter, then it doesn't get there in time, and then do you waive it and stuff like that. So, whether it's 3 or 5 days, I think as Sharon and I talked about it, we were thinking about as somebody mails it on the day it's due, it's gonna be here within 3 days, and then they would not get that late fee. That's what's kind of our rationale thinking behind it, that it's not at the office, but they wrote the check, it's in the mail. That's why we had thought about giving the grace period to say, yeah, they had a good faith effort, they paid their bill. And I agree 100% that I think the cost of doing business is the credit card fee. I think with the new billing system, we're able to drive that number down per transaction. Now, as we grow in customers, it's still gonna be a number like this, but hopefully per transaction, it's a little bit less.
I obviously don't understand the legal ramifications of what I'm about to say, but what about having deposit to some kind of collateral for their, like, you pay the them not paying gets taken out of their deductible, and if their deductible's empty, then they're disconnected or something? Like a little prepayment pool.
Is that the deposit? Using the deposit differently? And some customers do ask us that, well, why did you not just use my deposit to pay my bill? And I understand, and it makes sense to me, that because we bill in arrears, we've always held that deposit to be the final bill for when someone leaves.
But it could be the final bill if they don't pay. That we take that money and then they're cut off.
So then there's the final, but no, I know what you're saying,
Then they have
yes.
to replenish their funds.
No,
Right.
And I will comment that as we go to AMI and do some of those things, we're gonna have some additional options that this board will have to decide. One of the things that we'll talk about during AMI is, do we wanna have Down south, it's a little more than here, but do we want to have somebody on prepay where they can pay online and get so many kilowatt hours? I think as we look at some of those, I've talked to people that have those type of accounts. So I think as we get into our billing system, our options are going to grow with the new billing system, as well as when we get to AMI in the next couple of years, our options will grow also, that, what are our customers asking for? And hopefully we can, make some decisions at that time to say, hey, we offer these type of benefits with some of those different options that we have, because we have an AMI program and a new billing system.
Any other comments, questions?
I only have one. I would prefer sticking to a 3-day grace period instead of a 5-day, because I think you'll get to that point where it'll become the normal, like you
Yeah.
said, and I think that 3 days to get through the mail is more than adequate nowadays, so that's what my suggestion is. And I don't know if you want a motion.
I think we are looking for some action. So the first one was returning to assessing the penalties, but allowing that extra grace period. And then the second one would be absorbing the online credit convenience fee as cost of doing business. I think the other piece that we didn't talk about from a financial piece is when you're taking in those credit card payments, that immediacy is also immediacy to invest. And that can go into our investment dollars faster. So those are things that can offset some of those costs. Anyway, but those are the two things that we're looking at.
Okay. I would like to make a motion to return to the penalty and with a 3-day grace period.
All right, I have a motion to return to the penalties with a 3-day grace period. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right. I have a first and a second. Is there any other comments or questions? Seeing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Sorry. I was thinking about something else.
It's okay, delayed reaction. So it's 4-0 for in favor. And then, do I have a motion on the second piece of
I
this?
would like to make a motion to waive the online credit card convenience fee of $3.95.
I will second the second motion.
All right. And so the second motion is to waive the $3.95, as you just said, I can't now say it, $3.95 fee to keep positively impacting our customer response. Are there any comments or questions on that one?
I think that is a great idea because I think that's like something that I've heard about is that it's like a needling for people, So I think that's very positive to do that.
I know that's how I feel when I see it.
Yes.
I just get annoyed. I'm like,
Yes, because I want to use my rewards. Just kidding. All right.
maybe.
It's
Maybe.
almost as much as a penalty for paying
Yes.
late,
Yes, exactly.
So-
Exactly. And so you're penalizing somebody who wants to pay on time.
Correct.
One question, you talked a little bit about the number of checks that come in. Have we ever estimated what essentially the cost is to process those by hand for bringing those in, opening up the envelopes? And I was just wondering what the cost was.
I'm super curious on what we have and then what's our cost on that and.
The answer is no. Since I have been here, we have not done any sort of analysis. I think where it gets gray or cloudy for me is that, yes, I can use fewer people if I'm doing more of the online payments and things like that, but I still have to have the people here to answer the phones, and then I have to have the coverage for the breaks. So I don't know if you're aware, but I did have an internal billing clerk that was promoted into a supervisory position, and I did not backfill that. So just by using some of these, applying online and doing some of these other things and credit card payments, we are working differently, and I am able to reduce staff. But just because of the phones and supporting and coverage, I don't know. And then if I have the staff here, I may as well have them processing the mail, I guess is my point. So,
Go ahead, Shane.
And there's other alternatives as we move to a new billing system because, there's opportunities to use like a lockbox service or a vault type situation, and then the bank would be depositing and sending us a file to upload.
Yes.
Yeah, so there's a lot of alternatives. With the existing system that we have, though, that would be extremely difficult to accomplish. We could do the lockbox, but then there would still be the data entry. So you
Right.
don't want to go there at
But
this
once
point.
we have the download, that's much easier. All right. All right, so I have a motion and a second to waive the fees. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion passes 4-0. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And then moving on to 10C, this is our subcommittee for the compensation and benefits, and it's usually a committee that the president appoints. And last year, Mr. Fox and I served on this subcommittee. And although I can appoint anybody I'd like, would like to just throw that out for other commissioners that might want to volunteer this year for that committee. One reason I would like to finish what I started is we were talking about the compensation study, and then we're also talking about a few benefits that were neglected to be added to our benefit package that I think that should be added. And then there was also, what was the third thing that I was thinking about in regards to? Oh, looking at different benefit providers and maybe getting some better numbers. That was the third thing. So those are the three things that subgroup is working on right now. So I just wanted to get comments or questions from the commission or thoughts on how we proceed. And then I'll let Greg speak.
Justin can take my spot if he's more inclined to do the numbers, or I can keep doing it if he doesn't want to.
Okay.
I would be interested in being on, yeah.
Would you?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fox. All right.
He's got the head for the numbers.
And Jody, would you have any interest or? Okay. All right. So Mr. Krieg and I will serve on that subcommittee if that is all right with the commission. All right. I don't think we need to vote on that since it's my,
Yep, no, I don't
Okay.
think so. I think we'll, like I say, it'll probably be, Gene and I have started some dialogue on this, and I just wanted to put this together, just a preliminary budget type document on what that looks like. So we're gonna look in September, early September, but we wanted to see who that is, and then we can send out some emails so we can get on people's calendar ahead of time, and then we'll have dates to backfill that as well.
perfect. All right. Any other questions from the commission on the schedule or any other things out there? All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Drent. Thank you, Ms. McGann, for putting this together for us. Number 11 is future agenda items. Is there anything that we didn't discuss tonight or we needed a status update on for future meetings? All right, seeing none, we have canceled the next meeting of August 16th, and so we will be meeting back here September 7th after Labor Day, which is a Tuesday. And with that, I will take a motion to adjourn. Oh, Mr. Schemmel,
If I may.
you may.
If time permits, I can answer Commissioner Fox's question on chloroform.
Oh,
It'll be
okay.
brief. Part of my job is keeping track of a few hundred acronyms, and the acronyms that start with M in Minnesota are daunting. MRL is minimum reporting limit, so if it's at least that number, it has to appear on the report so it is not regulated. There is no regulatory number for that. So it's 0.7 of a part per billion. And volatile organics, basically, they want to evaporate, so they leave the water very rapidly. Okay, so, I mean, not that that's why it's unregulated, but that's what the MRL column stands for. It's not a maximum number, it's the minimum reporting limit, so.
Excellent, thank you.
I
All right,
brain
thank you
dead
for
a moment.
coming up with that tonight. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn until September 7th, was it?
Yes, and a second. All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion passes. Thank you,